Well, look at all these beautiful ladies on stage. This is the first time in the last 2 days we've had an all-female panel, so I am very excited. No better way to wrap up Ohio VC Fest. I can't believe it's already coming to an end, but you want to be in this room for this next panel. Founders face challenges every day, but this panel specifically will be focusing on the unique experiences and insights as a woman founder. And leading the panel is Marilyn. She is a startup investor and advisor working with Sidecut Ventures, Bad Bitch Empire, and NextCubed. With a background in neuroscience and extensive experience in scaling startups, she focuses on supporting underrepresented founders and early-stage companies. Sarah is committed to creating an equitable opportunities in the startup ecosystem. So Sarah, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much. Excellent. Sounds great. Thank you. I'd like to start off by introducing all of our guests to the audience here today. We have 4 exceptional female founders who are incredible leaders in their own right. They come with a variety and depth of experience, startups ranging from all kinds of industries, and have faced similar and very different challenges. Can you each go around and give a brief overview of what made you start your company and a quick snippet of where you're currently at in your entrepreneur journey? Can we start over here with Wendy on the end and work your way over?
Hello, everyone in Cleveland. My name is Dr. Wendy Slone. I'm the CEO and founder of bTech. bTech's product is the Halcyon Smart Patch. We focus on healing wounds from the inside out in order to prevent amputations. And we got started out of love for my parents. My mom was a diabetic, and I saw her lose both of her legs to diabetic foot ulcers within a span of 3 years. And I felt that I could do something better.
I am Charu Ramanathan. I am the CEO and founder of Vitalxchange. Vitalxchange is a digital parenting platform, and I founded it based on my own experiences as a parent and to use digital technology and AI for consumer self-empowerment in healthcare, which is really at its rudimentary stages. So I'm here to share my journey. This is my 2nd healthcare startup and 3rd startup overall.
Hi everyone, I'm Britt Corsi. I'm the founder and CEO of EarthABC. I'm a Cleveland, Ohio native, and launched this inspired on NASA climate data. I was researching it with the power team out of Langley and kind of got scared at what I was seeing from a data and research perspective, and felt that I had a responsibility to do something about it, given my 10-year background in building startups, and thought I really needed to leverage that for good.
Hi, I'm very loud.
Good sound.
Yes.
All right.
I'm Vanessa Mosbacker. I'm the CMO and co-founder of Cyrannus. I started my career on the ad agency side and really moved over to Silicon Valley corporate America. I worked for Twitter, Logitech, Skype, Microsoft. And I think I was always feeling very handcuffed in creating in terms of strategically, and I wanted to create a company, and I knew I could do it better than what I was seeing. So we created Cyrannus really to help founders, and that was my passion, help them raise capital easier, while really helping the investor side and giving them the ability to have liquidity and trade on our private market swap. So we wanted to build a platform really focused on all audiences. So yeah, it's been such a journey, a lot of fun.
Thank you, ladies. Big missions, big visions, big talent. If you don't mind, I want to jump right into the trenches and discuss the funding landscape. I think all founders here in the audience have their own war stories, so feel free to share some wins or some heavy hits. I want to start off with a quick story. So Britt, I want to start this section off with you. When I first met Britt, she actually curved me so hard. I think I sent her an invite to an event I had, and she sent me a very brief email back, and she goes, "Can't make it, too busy trying to get this deal done." And I was like, who is this woman? What is she doing that is so important? And so we exchanged a few emails and eventually became friends. But to me, that exchange also spoke volumes about your resilience as a founder, right? Because you've clearly been through the fundraising rodeo enough to not let some investor like me waste your time unnecessarily, which is perfect. And I know each of you has a thread of this type of experience where you've done the whole pitching investors thing and figured some things out about what it's really going to take for you to take your business to the next level. So let's kick this one off with you, Britt, and share some stories about how you've learned to approach funding for your startup or some experiences you've had that informed your perspective, because I'm just fascinated. I don't think a founder's ever curved me so hard in the years I've been doing this, and I love it.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out how to navigate the investment landscape, if you will. When I originally launched this, coming out of the 10-year background that I had, I was like, I'm not going to have any problem whatsoever fundraising anywhere. And that was not the case. In my own backyard, it was really difficult to have conversations and get people interested in what I was doing. And predominantly, I think it was because I was 2 years ahead of what was happening in the climate market. So nobody really understood what I was saying anyways, because it was like, you're solving problems that we haven't even realized yet in the system. But I mean, I got curved by investors in Ohio in the beginning of my journey, hard. I've had, people make introductions to an investor in Ohio, and the investor would set a meeting, and then as soon as the other person dropped off, they would cancel it. And I'd say, hey, do you want to reschedule? And they'd send me an email and say, why would I invest in you? Kind of deal, right? Like, that's a pretty hard sell. So I kind of stopped building a lot of investor relationships in Ohio because I thought maybe it's just the climate side. Maybe they're just not investing in climate here. So let me focus elsewhere. And I started building my relationships with investors elsewhere. And I had zero business having meetings with Series A investors out of New York or Chipotle's fund manager. Zero business having meetings with these guys, but they were setting them. And so I started to build my network of investors, whether it's international, here in the States, and that started to fare a little bit better for me from an understanding of who I should talk to and when and at what time. And that ultimately the relationships I was building led me to a fund out of Chicago keeping their sights on me for a year and ultimately sending me up to like what we call training camp in baseball of Techstars before the major leagues, right? And yeah, I don't know if does that answer what we're...
That does. So it explains a lot. So you've been curved, so you learned how to curve back, which I think is a good skill for founders to have in general. But it also reminds me of something that Wendy said about, in this new landscape where we're not limited to geographies, you can find a champion, and that's ultimately kind of what it takes to get off the ground at this early stage. Like, you have to find a champion that believes in you. It's like part of growing your team and stuff like that. But Wendy, I thought you had some insightful things to say about what it, like, getting your company off the ground and what it means to find that champion wherever they are, whoever they are, how important that is.
Yeah, I like to just piggyback on what Britt said, that I got the comments that you need to find somebody to invest in women, and more importantly, women that are Black and brown. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what does that investor look like? Because I'm looking at my business. Right, drop the mic on that, right? Yeah. And so I started asking, what does that look like? And every head went down. And I began to realize that was a cop-out for not investing in a double minority. First a female, and then an African-American female. And so instead of having the balls, okay, I'm gonna say that, edit that if y'all need to say, Wendy, no, we just don't even have no money. This is part of the VC angel world that women particularly don't recognize, that some funds are not funded yet. And instead of saying that, they kind of waste your time and dangle the carrot. And then they throw out that you need to find somebody to invest in something that looks like you. So what I have done is started to look at alternative things outside of my ecosystem. I'm an Ohioan. I love Ohio. I want to stay here in Ohio. But the reality of it is I'm an African-American female. And if I want to stay in business and keep my doors open, I have to begin to think in alternative routes to raise dollars and get things done and not be afraid. Women, we're afraid sometimes to say what we need and what we want. We're afraid of being called that bitch. And I'm not afraid to be called that bitch in business. In my personal life, those are fighting words. Let me just be real clear. And so I embraced that, because if I was any other color, if I were a man, I would be a go-getter and I would have a pocket full of money and not produce anything. And this is what I had shared with Sarah. So looking outside of your pond is key if you're a female founder.
I can't agree more, yes. First of all, we need to plug you into the Bad Bitch Empire. You are certified. And for what it's worth, like, finding your people, the Bad Bitch Empire, it's all women LPs, women GP, investing in women founders. Those deals get done. Those women are closing rounds. I mean, you see these statistics, like 2% of venture capital is going to women founders. In the Bad Bitch Empire, we did a fundraising boot camp for early stage women founders. 10 out of 12 of them closed their funding round. That is 86%. That's the difference when you're sitting at a table of your people. That's how that's how it gets
your
done.
tribe. And more importantly, I don't want to hog up the time, which the word champion is like really high on my list right now. And I'm asking people, do you think you can champion me? Because if you can't, next.
Yeah, and just one thing, I watch a lot of TED Talks and videos about female founders, and I hear a lot, I'm not a female founder, I'm a founder, or it's not about empowering women, we have power. And though all those are true, I still believe I am proud to be a female founder, right? And there still is a gap in the workplace on funding females, and I think we have to talk about it. And I think it's very important to make change. We have to talk about these things. And so I always say, yes, I'm a very proud female founder because, fundraising, we're getting fundraised at 25%, where men are getting funding at 50%. And I think it's a good thing and something to be proud of.
Ooh, love it. So you brought up a really great point. There's a common thread here about expanding your geography a little bit. There is, having worked mostly on the coast and coming here into this Ohio ecosystem, it is very different operating in a place like Ohio as opposed to a traditional tech hub in good and bad ways. Like, I am completely sold on Ohio as a future tech hub. This is a powder keg waiting to explode. But quick show of hands, founders here in the audience, can you raise your hand if you have raised capital inside of Ohio? Awesome. 5. How many of you have raised capital outside of Ohio? Oh, that's pretty even. That's pretty good. I like it. All right. Well, Charu, I want to start the next section with you because you made a very conscious decision about where to build. And you've had experience in both Silicon Valley and the Ohio ecosystem here. So can you walk us through some of the calculus that you made and what gave you that conviction to build here in Ohio?
I think one of the biggest advantages here is the cost of living. So as a founder, you're taking immense personal risk as you're, squeezing out risks in your enterprise. You are, raising capital regardless of whether you're a female or male founder. It's a high risk value proposition. And many of us have other obligations in our life, like, children, caregiving, et cetera, et cetera. So, so that was really important, that I wanted to make sure that my personal financial risk was at a minimum. And so that was one of the number one criteria. And I talked to other founders in the region, and that sort of is a very important vector. And then, from a fundraising standpoint, I've had investors for across the board, no problem, in terms of outside Ohio investors. But for employees and work culture, I tested out the California side, and I also tested out India, because I'm originally from India, and for outsourcing, and I could not really, the cultural difference and the pace at which I wanted to operate, and the chemistry and the culture was very, very different. So I decided not to take that risk.
And that is part of the superpower that I think these local ecosystems have, and it's an advantage that we have over traditional tech hubs, is now talent is remote. There's not, like, you don't have to have your entire team based out of, within 10 miles of where you live. You can work with people all across the world. And I think all of you have pretty diverse, well, Vanessa, is your entire team here in Ohio?
No, we're split. So we have quite a few people here in Ohio, but also a few in Silicon Valley.
Oh, excellent. And I know, Britt, your team is like everywhere.
Yeah, my engineers are all spread out from like Canada, Bulgaria, Turkey, some in California. Our ops team is out of Georgetown University. Like we're, CTOs down in Texas.
And Wendy, is your team pretty spread out?
I'm the only one here. Everyone else is someplace else.
Represent Ohio,
Yeah.
yes. As you guys are looking forward at the growth and development of your company, I think I've heard from all of you that you want to stay here in Ohio, and the barriers are decreasing. Like, nothing stops you from acquiring talent anywhere in the world and keeping your burn rate low by living in a friendly place like Ohio. How do you see the long term of your business? In terms of, what's it going to take for you to stay in Ohio? Is there anything that's making you think of leaving? What is keeping you here? And what are the advantages that you have right now being here in Ohio?
I can go. So maybe just a little story. So, I built my career in Silicon Valley. I, was a top candidate referred by a chief marketing executive on C-suite for this position. And the founder, it was this really big up-and-coming, I won't name the company, but it was a big up-and-coming company that was really getting some traction at the time. This is about 10 years ago. And I was referred. I had already built a big background in technology. I had been working on some of the largest marketing campaigns in the world. The founder wouldn't meet with me because of my school selection. Wouldn't even have a conversation with me. And the only reason I got that feedback was because I had a very close contact there. And it made me think about this, podcast where you think about you have an MIT person, which, you only hire from MIT. It may not even be a top candidate, but you have somebody as a state school might be in the top 5%. And I think that my perspective in talent is that you cannot, even in Ohio, I want to keep my roots here. I'm California native, but I think you have to have an open perspective on talent. And that is so important because even in Ohio, I think the problem with Silicon Valley building my career, it can be a bit of a bubble. And I think innovation and these things come from anywhere. Including this room. And I think, being open-minded is important in the culture that I build in Cyrannus and that I know our executive team in Cyrannus builds as well.
Yeah, and not for nothing, Ohio has a really high density of universities here. It is unusual. It is an unfair advantage. And a lot of these universities are leaning into the tech ecosystem, looking to support it. I love what Lynn is doing at CSU, actually having venture accelerators at the college level teaching kids about what it means to have a venture scale business and addressing that knowledge gap with founders. When you're thinking of feeding a local ecosystem like Ohio, there's a lot of differences. What I noticed in Silicon Valley and New York City is I had a startup back in the day. It was a total failure, but it was a great experience. But in New York City, I went and I set up meetings with 50 investors in 1 month, and I got a ton of feedback, got punched in the face a bazillion times, and eventually decided F this, I'm just gonna build and make money and not even bother with these guys. Started curving investors like you, Britt. But I was able to learn so fast, and I never came from a culture or environment where we even thought of owning equity in a company as a thing. This was something that was new to me, but I was able to upskill and learn very fast because there's a high density of talent. You could go to a bazillion founder meetups and get exposed to the culture and the language, and you could speak to 50 different investors and get your feedback right away. we kind of have to find those networks here in Ohio somehow. I've heard from all of you that befriending other female founders has been a key of your success and just helping you surmount those challenges. What is your guys' take on the local ecosystem, and how do we make it more friendly? Hosting meetups is an easy answer, but there's a lot that goes into having these long-term ecosystem events. Have you guys found that like befriending other founders is successful? Have you had luck? Is talking to investors handy for you? Wendy, you look like you're ready to go.
I think when I go to those type of events, they're nice, they're well, but I don't see me, and I'm not talking about a female African American. I don't see deep tech life sciences in the room. I think here in Ohio, what my problem has been in networking is when I go into those rooms, there are people that have food apps, cooking apps, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is technology. But I'd like to see someone that looks like me, they can be in any kind of deep tech or life science. And, but the struggles in that space are different from something that is building a turnkey business that is an app. And they have their special, unique things. And so they're able to really connect with one another. And I feel like an outlier because their pain points are not my same pain points. And for example, someone who's building an app, that's 2 to 5 years, and you get an investment return. In deep tech life sciences, you have to have investors that have an appetite that says, I know that it's going to take you 10 to 15 years to get there because of the nature of your business. And I find that that's lacking here, and they want to bunch all of us together in the same pot when we're unique, and we're not cookie cutter unique. We are individualistically unique, and I think that that's a conversation that's not being had in this particular ecosystem. So when I go to Boston, they're having it, and they know it. When I go to San Francisco, they having it, they're knowing it. When I go to Chicago, they're having it, and they're knowing it. And it's just a learning curve to me for here in the state of Ohio that we have to become open enough within this ecosystem to begin to look and say, yeah, we've got this, but we need to grow, we need to expand, we need to be more didactic in our approach to, the types of tech that are coming into this area, into this space, and particularly for women. And I think that that's a hard conversation that we haven't had in Ohio. Oops, I might not be invited to anything else.
Well, I'm happy to have you here, Wendy. Yes, Charu, please.
I actually echo your sentiment 100%, and I think that's healthcare is important innovation. It's the innovations; these healthcare innovations are important to make our quality of life better. All of that stuff. So I think I see a trend of we don't do healthcare investments anymore. The question is how do we the formula for getting a return on investment for healthcare investments, because you have such a long time to market and success. It has to be very different than like a SaaS business where you do an MVP, you fast fail, or you're successful and you're an overnight sensation. So definitely that point. But to your point about meeting other entrepreneurs, and especially female entrepreneurs is really, really important because they can sort of say, hey, I've spoken to them, they're not very friendly. Because one of the things is it's not just you expose yourself and you go kind of throw your pitches on the wall and see what sticks, because like you said, you got punched in the face, and each punch in the face is a little bit of your soul sort of questioning, should I exist? And so you have to be very, very protective about being selective about the investors that you're going after, because investors are very opportunistic, so they might add digital health on the list, but they may not really do that. So looking at the portfolio, and that's the first question I usually ask is, are you investing in the space? And if the answer is no, I'm sorry to have wasted your time, goodbye and good luck, because you cannot go through that pitch, because they are not for you, for the exact reasons you mentioned. And I've learned that very hard way, so.
It goes back to that champion piece, being able to find your tribe and your champion and cutting through the BS to find that champion. And as women, we need that champion. We need somebody that's going to stand and believe in us. It's not that they rah-rah, but it's that they believe in you as an entrepreneur and they believe in your business. But first, it's you as an entrepreneur, and that CEO is capable of taking that product to market because that's what they're investing in.
We were talking about building an entrepreneurial ecosystem here, and I just want to take a time out. And are there any women entrepreneurs in this room right now? 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, dope. Way more than I expected there to be.
Yes, I love this.
Right? But I think what we get used to in Ohio is not going out and establishing these networks for ourselves and building up the ecosystem for ourselves and for our fellow female entrepreneurs, if we call ourselves that. That's how it's built, right? Like, you go to California, it's plastered with billboards that are startups. That's all, they live and breathe it. There's nothing else going on there, right?
The bubble.
Yeah, there's a bubble.
New York, they curate founder get-togethers so very well. And if we want that here, we have to create that here. And it's not about looking to a group. Jumpstart is fantastic, but it's not about looking to Jumpstart to say, you're not bringing women entrepreneurs together, right? It's up to us to do that and to make sure that as we see investments scrolling on LinkedIn, that we're a bit more visible in that, as opposed to it being 99% men from Ohio receiving funding, right? Like, it's about building up that community on our own. And like, your question of what do you want, what do you see here, that's what we want. We want people to just, you want it, go do it, right? Like, you want to see this, set it up. I think, Charu, you were a part of the Female Founder Society that I created a couple years ago, right? And we only had 12 different female founders join it. And it was trash. Like, I had 2 meetings, nobody ever showed up. And I was like, all right, cool, bye. But that's the type of thing you have to do. You have to just establish the ecosystem that you want. But we also have to remember that Ohio is historically not like an entrepreneurial ecosystem like they want to paint it out to be. This is a big business, safe 9-to-5 community. And it's great for expanding your business, but the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we have to create that on our own if we want it.
Yeah, just a little bit at Cyrannus, we're actually going to launch this year a Founders Collective. So the ability of how can we bring founders together, but also how can we give founders a little bit of power and rate investors that invest in their platform? How can we enable them to find like-minded companies? And so this is the feature that we're launching this year. So if you're interested in bringing founders together, this is one way that we're trying to, bring people together on our platform, which I think is going to help the Ohio community, but also founders anywhere.
I love that something like that is being built here in Ohio. And it makes total sense because when I came here, it was not hard for me to get around and make connections with everybody in this state. Everyone was very welcoming. Everyone wanted to introduce me. When I threw an event a couple months ago, I was new kid on the block. 20 founders drove 90 minutes, 2 hours to be at my event when they had never seen me before. And that struck me because no way in hell would that happen in San Francisco or New York. That is an Ohio phenomenon.
They're
right?
they're like, there's no one else.
And then they all said my event was great. And I was like, you guys are so nice. This is so welcoming. But I love what you were saying, Charu, about learning how to ask questions to the investors. Once you've had your time wasted by investors enough, I think you start to just pick that up. And that is something I wish more founders knew out the gate, that you didn't have to get punched in the face 20 times to learn something like that. Is just start off and being are you actively deploying? No? Next. It really, you can cut out so much out of your schedule, so much dead weight out of your VC meetings if you just start off with that. And I think that there's probably a lot of nuggets we can pull out of stuff we wish we knew 10 years ago. Just ask these questions.
I learned something really interesting that captured this from my friend Jim Haviland. I don't know if he's here. He said, you have hell yeah, hell and hell yes. You always go to the hell yes because everything else is hell or hell no. So that was really the important point is, in the first 30 seconds, if they care for your DNA or not. And if they're like yawning, disenchanted, not interested, that's a hell or hell no. So it's okay. And that's, not all investors have the track record of investing in people that look like us, understand how women's minds operate, and that's okay. Just let's look under a rock even to find those people that actually respect you, think you can do it, think your vision is excellent, and they're willing to come on the journey with you.
Yeah, that is our yes, the hell yes thing, because what I learned in like my founder tour is a lot, and I see it in founders today that I work with at the early stage, is you can pitch 50 investors and get 50 different reasons why they won't invest. And they will send you on air and saying, oh, we'll invest if you get a traction number like this, or we're waiting for you to secure this strategic partnership. There's a bazillion reasons why they will not invest. And if you actually get that metric that they ask for and bring it back to them, they'll have another thing to pull out of the hat, another reason that they won't invest. And the truth is, they just lack the conviction to invest in you or your company. And if you can filter via that like hell yes, hell no framework, you can also cut out a lot of these bad experiences that I think a lot of early stage founders, especially underrepresented founders, but I think honestly every founder like goes through this, of investors kind of sending you on these side quests, and you may take your eye off the ball of what's actually important in your company that is important for you to be building on. Have any of you, what did it feel like when you found a champion? I think all of you have kind of found a champion, someone that was there for you when things were hard, when you had to decide to fire your board, or you lost a key client. Like, what did it feel like? Have any of you like found a champion, and how did you find them? What did it feel like? Did you know right away? Was it something that happened over time? Did it happen in one pitch meeting?
So I guess I'll start that ball. I have found what I thought were champions at times, and they turned out to be dragons. And so I have learned that all that is on the surface is not glitter and good and touchy-feely and happy land and skipping down the road with each other and all of that, and that you really need to really take time to vet your champions and make sure that they're going to be champions for a long period of time, because they can change up on you in the middle of initially being what appeared to be a champion. How I initially found champions were through entrepreneurs in residence. And then I got burned a couple of times by EIRs. And I learned that I need to start really vetting and looking very closely at people that I bring into association with what I'm building.
I'd say the first CEO from the first startup that I worked with when I was like 22, 23, became my mentor. And throughout my 20s, building other people's startups, it just snowballed. I kept building others, and he remained my mentor. And when I started this company up, it like 10x'd how much that I relied on him as a resource in this process. And I remember pitching at Accelerate here. It's like a competition for like $2,500 or $5,000, I don't remember. It was during COVID. I go to pitch. They put you in a dark room because it's not live, so they're recording it. And I have the worst panic attack induced from this dark room for whatever reason, and bombed the pitch. It's still online if anybody's interested in reliving my pain.
Brave of you to note that.
Right, it's terrible. Go ahead. But I jumped on a call with him after that pitch, and I was like, I picked up a 6-pack of Bumbleberry. I was gonna go home and take a bath, and he's on the phone with me, and he's like, "Listen, B, it is so easy to sit on the couch, eat pizza, and watch a movie. What you're doing is uncomfortable and it's hard and it's going to be, but you got to get used to it, right? And I think having that kind of champion from the mental health perspective and just like speaking life into you on this journey is the only thing that's kept me going at all. People just speaking life into you when you're down or you're not sure, any of it. That's, I think, the most important thing that I've ever gathered from this journey is having those people. You're going to get fucked over by everybody and anyone. It doesn't matter. Business, mentors, whoever, right? Your own board is going to, leak your ideas out to somebody they're consulting. But at the end of the day, when you have those people that can keep you sane, that's like, you can't even pay for stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking on that. So, I kind of see two categories of champions. Both of them you alluded to. One is a peer champion, someone that is another female founder that's on a very similar journey to you. The more affinity there is, the more synchronous your journeys are. I'd love to talk to you after this. So that's very important because there will be, life as a founder can be a pressure cooker, and you need to release pressure. And my good friend Lindsay is here. We're going to release pressure together. We're going to have our husbands drive us home from somewhere. We haven't decided. But that's really important because I also need to say, hey, this person said this to me. And then I want her to say, well, they may not have meant about it that way too. So you can kind of get into a victim mode as well, which is important to recognize. So there's the peer champion, and then there's the sage champion. Like you said, you go, I'm in two minds. I've got this bow chair that was really terrible. I don't know how to handle him, or her. And then you really want sage advice. That person knows you, knows your strengths and weaknesses, and they are willing to look what advice can they give to you to help you look at yourself in the mirror so you can figure out how to solve the problem. And I think these are two types of champions.
I agree. 1 million. Can I just add? My best champion has been a B2B mentor that Boston Scientific actually connected me with when I was doing some product work with them. And this guy has been phenomenal. He's out in San Francisco. Just an amazing champion. When I call, he picks up the phone, and it's the emotional part of it. It's not the business parts of it, but he helps me to see the BS and say, this is what I faced. Don't listen to that. They just trying to get money out of you. Cut that off. You ain't got to take every call. Don't do this. Don't do that. And he's been amazing to me. And so that founder to founder, it still is most invaluable to me.
This is some good stuff. In the interest of time, I want to segue a little bit into what is next for the ecosystem. So, Vanessa, you're deeply involved and fixated on what is next for venture capital as a whole with Cyrannus. How do we really level the playing field at scale and give founders what they need to be successful, including access to impactful capital? Because the world is changing, and there's honestly more opportunities than ever. And what you're doing at Cyrannus is one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting thing I've come across in this ecosystem. And the fact that it's being built here in Ohio is just incredible. So what is next? Where is all of this going?
Yeah, I think our long-term vision is, giving founders transparent feedback. Right, and I think you mentioned that earlier. You pitch a lot, right? I think our CEO is spending 100% of his day pitching to investors, and we're not getting transparent. You'll get a traction comment, and look, when we have traction, we won't need your money, right? I think you need to buy into the vision and what the potential of a company can be. So I think what we want to do is give founders transparent feedback through our expert community, but also we want to give them faster access to capital. The fact that our CEO spends 100% of his time trying to raise money is a problem, right? Where, I might be operating the business. I think that it's just a model that I think has to shift. And so, the transparent feedback, but also I think allowing founders to raise subsequent rounds easier. We know why startups fail. It's the lack of funding. And so I think this is a problem and a long-term solution that we're trying to solve through the Cyrannus platform.
Absolutely. And I love that it provides a lot more data to investors to help them make better decisions, because having been in VC for a few years and seeing how these decisions are actually made is very illuminating, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement. So providing all that type of data and all investors having access to 50 different expert opinions on a deal it's going to change the game.
I would say if there was this when I first started and there was a climate expert that could evaluate me and tell an investor that it was deal worthy, changes everything.
And I'm so excited because with all of this, like, it's going to level the playing field for tech hubs like Ohio that are outside of Silicon Valley and New York City, and I think we're set up to have a lot of unfair advantages over the big tech hubs, so I'm not leaving. I know you ladies aren't leaving either. I want to round out with a quick piece of advice, each of you, that you have for founders in the audience. I feel like we've delivered a lot of great nuggets today, but just round it out, down the line, one piece of advice that you have for founders at large or female founders in specific.
Yeah, I think my advice would be, I think doing things like this is uncomfortable for me. It's not, I can be on the business side and run the day-to-day, but I find these things very uncomfortable. And I think, as I've grown in my career, I've really recognized the power of a network, right? And I think most of my jobs I've gotten through referrals. And so I think the power of a network, and I think now that we're this digital, right, not everybody's in the office, that network can look very different. It can be, you can do things online, you can do panels like this, you can join conferences that are in person. And so I think actively putting a voice out there and actively being part of a community is, I think, one of my biggest lessons that took me time to break through the uncomfortableness of networking.
I don't want to tell you to do something if it's bad for your interest, right? Like, I'm not going to tell you definitely keep going building that stuffed animal. But, like, if you believe in something and it's worthy and and there's a fire in you, just, like, don't fucking give up. Like, you'll eventually find resources, you'll eventually figure it out, you'll eventually get creative. You just have to be relentless and keep going, and not a psychopath, but just keep going. Like, pick yourself up off the ground every week, because you will need to, and keep going. But when you are in a group of people who are not listening, know when to leave the room.
I actually typed up what I wanted to say. It's not my
love
original
that.
words. So, the most common way women give up their power is to believe that they don't have any. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, except in high heels. So that's what I want to remember. If you think the journey is worth traveling, travel with a lot of power, because the world will tell you you can't do it, because that's what they've been conditioned to say. So, like you said, you don't be a psychopath about it, but sometimes you have to be a psychopath about it. So go ahead, be that psychopath.
That's going to be our name, be a psychopath.
I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that. I think it is, at the end of the day, if you are so assured that you've got something that the rest of the world needs, and I believe that you do if you've got an ideal and you're an entrepreneur, then you need to just double down on it. And when the no's come, that's okay. But for every yes that comes, that's supportive. But more importantly, believe in yourself, believe in your business, believe in your product, because I promise you, you'll be that unicorn that all those no's, they're gonna come running up after you when you hit it big and when you're very successful at it. And you want to be able to pivot into something else. So stick to your guns. I find that women entrepreneurs, we understand and know our products, we understand our business, we understand our consumer, and we need to not be afraid to go after what we know and unashamedly go after what we know as entrepreneurs in the marketplace. And when we hold that up, we are going to be successful.
It only takes one yes to completely change the game. Stay in the game. Thank you. Good time, guys. Like right when it hit 0. You guys
We're
are
women.
Great. Yes. Getting it done. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, VC Fest. This has been amazing. Thank you to all of our amazing panelists. Please connect with these founders on LinkedIn if you'd like to keep up with their journey now that you've got the details and some backstory. I don't know who I hand this off to, but thank you guys for that healthy applause, too.